Welcome back to another edition of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. I am your host, Todd Rosales, and welcome back, folks. I know our shows have been a little bit sporadic over the past few weeks, but we are here. We've got a great episode for you. We've had a few scheduling conflicts. Some things are coming up, folks. I want to make a little bit of an announcement. We might be going on a little bit of a hiatus this summer. Not 100% sure. I will be having my second daughter at the end of June. So clearly I will have my hands full with two kids. So if I can get to the podcast and make sure I can record great episodes for you, we'll definitely get them out. But please, they may not be as regular as they typically are. But until then, we've got great episodes scheduled for you through the end of June. Amazing content that you can always find right here at facebook.com/cannabusinessgroup, or that you can go over to our YouTube page and see the entire collection at youtube.com/Elevate Your Grind. For those of you who missed our 420 event down at Rhythm and Vine, it was an amazing event. It was great to have everybody back together. It was great to have 420 again this year, to be out with friends, doing it safe, doing it socially distant. It just felt great to do it again. You know, it was over a year. We were supposed to have 420 last year. It was supposed to be a big celebration. We weren't able to do it, but the cannabis industry held strong. We had a hell of a year, and I think we deserve to celebrate. So on that note, I am going to bring in my guest today, who I'll call a pioneer of the industry. She's been in it longer than most of us. She has truly pioneered several different spaces in this industry. We got a chance to talk to her partner probably, I don't know, a month and a half ago. Time does not exist on this podcast. It probably was like 3 months ago, and I'm assuming it was like 2 weeks ago. But please welcome my guest, Tara Wells, the co-founder of Ganja Goddess. Tara, thank you for joining.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, please. I had such a great conversation with Zach. I couldn't wait to bring you on and get you here. You know, it's interesting having that conversation with Zach, because a lot of what I was reading about Ganja Goddess had centered around you at the time and how you got it started and everything else. And Zach, to me, was like the next key to growing and scaling to where you guys are today. So, I mean, on that note, I know you were in the office when he did his interview and you kicked him out so you can do this in peace. Take me back to the moment, you know, when you were doing more so the edibles, when you met Zach, and the rest of what you're doing now just started taking off. How did you meet him? How did you guys realize that you should be partners? And, you know, what has that been like?
Well, Zach, the great thing about our partnership is he has qualities that I don't have. He's very meticulous with details. He is very organized. He's really good with people. And, you know, he has a vision that encompasses doing everything by the book. So he's really good with political issues that we have to deal with, which we deal with a lot in our business. In this, it's kind of a, you know, we're in our infancy in the cannabis business, and a lot of the regulations we deal with are ridiculous, but we have to deal with them. And he does them by the book and keeps us compliant, and really compliant. So I really love that about him. He also deals with our infrastructure and our employees, and, you know, in our distribution network. So he's a great partner, and I wouldn't be where I am, or the company would not be as successful as it is without him. I lean towards more creative things, thinking up new products, I really deal with a lot of our real estate. I deal with all of our marketing and our advertising and our branding. And so, you know, and kind of what embodies the goddess, Ganja Goddess. So it really makes a nice, and we play back and forth. I mean, we don't make any decisions really without each other. And to answer your question, when I first got started, it was kind of on a lark in the medical marijuana business, and it was to fill in a need. And I was I started making edibles, and it just snowballed because people loved what I made so much. And so he came in and helped me with that, because he's very interested in baking, believe it or not. But his skills, he's very educated, and his skills are much more administratively and managerial. And so we quickly, you know, advanced. And then we got this idea, and he really helped streamline the idea of doing things online and reaching out to customers online, and a distribution network. And so it built. The great thing for us is that it built very slowly. So we were really able to make mistakes and to learn together what worked, what didn't work, and to try things out, which we still do, and to build our website, which is very different now than it was 10 years ago. The business in general is very different than it was 10 years ago. It's still, the kernel is still the same, but it's a very different business and much more, I mean, with the advent of taxes and regulations and laws, it's way more intense now. So,
No,
yeah.
you guys definitely sit at a nexus of the industry that is heavily regulated, because you're not a physical store. You are doing e-com, for lack of a better term. You have product in your vehicles, it's on the road, it's being delivered. So I imagine that the compliance that you have to deal with is pretty much a combination of what 2 or 3 other companies would deal with in combination. So I imagine, as an entrepreneur with this dream of this cannabis business to educate the community, and even the CBD business, where you have this message and these products that are going to benefit the world, to have someone like Zach that complements your skill set to be able to truly put that vision into a reality with you has got to be a great feeling. And I'm sure that just gives you so much confidence in the work that you're doing, that when you can, and I don't want to put you in the same category as me, but I can tell you, I come up with some of these wild ideas for different things that we do, whether it's C-Lab or it's Spring Big. And I'm like, I don't know if that's going to work, but it sounds great. I imagine when you come up with ideas like that, you're like, well, let me see if Zach can help me put it into action here. It's got to be a really good feeling.
Yeah, I mean, he is a great partner. And one of the reasons that I we really rely on each other and we trust each other. We don't always agree. And so we always
But that's
have
good though.
Yeah,
I think you guys keep each other in check that way.
Definitely. And the nice thing is our growth has been really exponential every year. And especially the last 2 years, we've had an enormous amount of growth, both with legalization and with the COVID, which has really pushed people to shopping online. And so that was really advantageous to us. And it's a great partnership, and it's based on trust. Like any good partnership, that's where it lies. And for ideas, I mean, he has great ideas too, in a different realm than I do. We also have amazing people working for us. We have a team that I feel blessed every day that we have such a great team, both in all of our locations, and it's wonderful, and I feel super lucky. And that's the name of the game, is having great employees that you trust and feel good about, and everybody works things out and has it's a kind of an interesting dynamic. And one of the things that's great about the cannabis business right now is that I believe it is in its infancy. So, we're able to look at this growth trajectory that we have for the next 5 years, both in California, but all over the United States with ganjagoddess.com, as we legalize and as we do, national legalization. You mentioned our CBD site. CBD Goddess is a site that we launched last year, and we deliver to customers CBD products, hemp-based, all over the United States. And one of the reasons we did that really was to get our distribution network prepared for cannabis being legal everywhere. And I think it's really served us well. But the other great thing is that, it's very easy now to buy CBD online. And one of the things we do with Ganja Goddess, and the reason I think we're successful, one of the reasons, is that we're very interested in customer service and customer feedback and really vetting products. So personally, I'm very into organic stuff and using organic products, using organic sources. And so we're vetting a lot of the products, or all the products that go into both sites, CBD Goddess and Ganja Goddess. And so the customer can go on and they don't have to worry, oh, is this made in China or the US? Is this organic or not? We don't carry products made in China, not because we don't like China, but because the kind of oversight as far as chemicals and things that are added to products isn't as great as it is in the United States. So that's important to me personally. And I know so many of my customers, I've been, from the beginning, we have customers that have been with us for over 10 years. So, it's important to me that we have safe, high quality, gorgeous products that are fun to use.
That's awesome. And I'm very pleased to hear that from what you're doing on the CBD side, because I do think you are a very trusted source in cannabis, especially in California, just from having such a large reach. That I'm glad to see a company like you taking on CBD and becoming a trusted source there, because I think for a long time we had CBD just blow up and it was
Yeah.
everywhere and nobody knew what it was or where it was from. And you make a very good point with the products from China. It's not that there's anything against them, but part of the reason that we all push for this legal cannabis market is to know exactly what's in our products. The testing is a very, very big part of it. So to hear you guys taking that on and bringing transparency to that industry, when I see companies like you and Veritas and Green Roads doing that, like that gives me hope that the first time that somebody tries a cannabis product, which is probably going to be CBD, they're going to have the right experience. I don't want to say they might have a bad experience. It may not be for them, but they're not going to have a bad experience because they didn't try a good product. Right. And that's what makes me very happy. I wanted to circle back to your beginnings in this industry, but you had mentioned something else. So we'll take it in a different direction. You talk about customer service. I could not agree with you more that customer service can make or break a brand very, very easily.
Big
Right.
time.
And you talk about, calling in. That blows my mind. In today's day and age, there are so many websites that don't have a phone number, that you have to go through a chat or some arbitrary way of doing it. And it's not convenient. You get frustrated. Or even when you do have a phone number, I can't tell you how much time I've spent on the phone with AT&T trying to make my cable bill accurate. Like, so you talk about customer service. What are you guys doing to make sure that that customer service is there? Because when in our industry, it can very easily just be, let's just make sure the product gets there, it gets there intact, and that we charge them the right thing. But there's also another level where you can go, where you provide education and other things. So I'd love to hear about your focus on customer service and what you guys are doing to stand out.
Well, our customer service and our website was born out of my frustration with not being able to get a hold of people when I ordered something, or had, like you said, with AT&T or your cable bill, or you order something on Amazon. It drove me crazy. You had to spend 15 minutes trying to even find a phone number, and sometimes it was impossible. So when we first designed the website, I was like, we're going to put our phone number front and center and easy to find. And we're going to have people that are there to answer the phone when we are open, because I just can't even, I get so frustrated with the same thing that you do. So it started out that way, and we always had somebody on the phone. And now our customer service department is like half of our business. We train people, we hire people that are really well-versed in cannabis and cannabis products and or CBD products, that know the line that we have, that have maybe tried it themselves, and they can answer. There's some very typical questions, but a lot of times people are new users and they really don't know exactly what's the best product for them, for what they're trying to deal with or try, or so on and so forth. And so our customer service really does guide people. One thing I've always stressed is, look, cannabis is like anything. Everybody's reaction to it is different. And so you really have to take responsibility for trying doses out yourself. Start with a very small dose and build up. And you'll find what works for you, and where your sweet spot is once you find it. And so there's that's a very strong thing. And then there's simple things like, oh, I got something and it, the cartridge was busted, or da, 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 and then it's immediately returned. We really try to turn customers on. We try to work with our producers to have specials so that new products can be tried for a really low cost. We can't give things away free, but we can do a special where if you buy one, you can buy another one for 5 cents, or you buy one product and buy any other product in this particular line for a very small price. And so that's what we try to do to enhance the experience, so that people can not spend a lot of money to try something new.
Yeah, that is awesome. And there's a bunch of stuff I want to continue on this vein, but we're going to pin this and go back, because I think it's important for people to understand that cannabis was not always part of your life. And I want people to understand that, because your eyes were opened when you were exposed to it. And I think a lot of people have that issue, myself included. I mean, I was raised a dare kid, don't do drugs, don't touch anything. Cannabis is a gateway drug. Never tried it really till I was in college, and even still didn't start picking it up and smoking regularly till I was like, I want to say 23, 24, right? So, and now I host a podcast twice a week on the subject. But, I saw that you didn't actually, cannabis wasn't a part of your life till you were 30. And you, not only that, you were a creative, and cannabis wasn't part of your life until you were 30, that's the part that blows my mind, because it goes hand in hand with creativity for the most part, at least as we learn once we try it. So can you tell us, like, what was your experience with cannabis before using it? How did you discover it? And, now you're probably one of the biggest advocates for its use in the industry. So it's funny how a little bit of exposure and education can change somebody.
Well, it was pretty amazing. I also grew up, with the whole idea, and it was drilled into me that cannabis was bad. It was a gateway drug, and I'd end up a heroin user if I started using it. And, I had no interest in it because of that. And I also was never a smoker. I did not like smoking. So it just wasn't attractive to me. Plus, I got married very, very young, and I started on a career in the entertainment business, straight out of college, during college, actually, and became successful. And I just didn't have time. I mean, it wasn't even in my wheelhouse. And then when I was 30, I actually, I got a divorce, and one of my first boyfriends was in the entertainment industry also, and he would smoke pot every morning. And I'd be like, dude, how in the world can you function? And he's like, listen, you have no idea. It really gives me great ideas. It keeps me open to new things. You got to try it. So of course I tried it, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty nice. And as a writer and a director and producer, I felt like when I had a project where I had to come up with ideas or, was stuck, if I just had a little bit of cannabis, it really helped me. So there was that avenue. Then there was the healing avenue. Someone in my family got cancer and had a recurring issue, and it got worse and worse. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to make something, a tincture, and see if it will help her. She was in her 80s and very adamantly opposed to trying cannabis, but it was the Thanksgiving weekend, and the whole family gathered with her at her house, and we were having Thanksgiving there, and we all tried it together on Thanksgiving morning, the tincture. She tried it as well, and she was able to eat for the first time in a long time, actually sit down and have dinner with us. And she was able subsequently to use the cannabis tincture that I made to cut down on the morphine that she was getting for the end of her life. So that was a real eye-opener for me as well.
So I got to stop you there 1 second, because that's an awesome story, and I loved hearing it, but I heard some connecting dots in between those two events I'm very curious about. So as I hear, you were very into gardening and cooking, and you had tomatoes that were growing nuts, like growing crazy. They were huge and everything else. And then in this story I hear next, so I decided to try growing cannabis. I've got to be honest, I've never looked at tomatoes and said, you know what? Let's go. Weed is next. So I'm imagining there might have been a little trigger there.
Well, my boyfriend was also on the deck with me, and he said,
got it.
This is crazy. You're growing these tomatoes. You gotta grow some cannabis too. Let's throw some in a pot. And I was like, sure, okay. Because I had a good experience, and I thought, yeah. And we wanted to make the tincture, it was a whole thing. It was just like one step led to the next step, led to the next step. And the same thing happened. I personally am a great gardener because I use, I always have a big, worm farm growing, that I use compost. I always, I do all kinds of stuff organically that make vegetables go crazy. I collect seaweed and I put that into the compost. And so it makes my plants humongous. It's ridiculous. And it's very easy, and it's not rocket science. So, there was that. And then that same year, it was the fall of that year of my big growing experience with cannabis. That's when I started, I started making edibles because I don't like to smoke, and I had all this cannabis. And so I went to, I used my brownie recipe, that was a family brownie recipe, and I made cannabis. brownies, pot brownies, and they were terrific. And so I was going to Burning Man, and I thought, well, it was my first time at Burning Man, and I knew that there was a gift economy, and I thought, well, I'll make pot brownies and give them to my fellow campmates and other people as my gift. Well, everybody loved them, and they were gone in one day. I didn't make enough, but one of the people in my camp was also he had a dispensary in Los Angeles, and he had my brownie, and he said to me, okay, you got to make these for my dispensary. And I was like, yeah, I'm so busy. I'm a producer and writer. I just can't, I don't have time. He said, just do it for a weekend. Make me 100 over the weekend, and we'll put them in the store and see what happens. And I said, okay, fine. So I did it. They sold out in like 3 hours, and it became like I started making them all, and I hired somebody. Then Zach came on board, and it just became this business that was crazy successful. And then from that, then evolved into other edibles that I made. And then, we came up with the idea of doing the online dispensary, which is basically we carry, I don't know, over 175 products, and and we have customers all over the state of California. We have over, I don't even know what our numbers are. They've got to be up to 200,000 customers at this point, because we've grown so much in the last 2 years. But it was, like I said, it was an evolution. Started really small from a very personal reason, and then kind of snowballed from there.
I feel like you have to be a big dreamer, just big aspirations, because like, all right, tomatoes, cannabis tincture. Like it's just, big jump. And then we're making a lot of edibles, one of the biggest delivery companies in California. Like, it's crazy how
it actually comes out of need. When I was doing the edibles, I had people contacting me personally saying, hey, I am in so much pain. I eat 3 of your brownies a day. Could you ship me 25 brownies a month? And I would be like, well, I don't know if that's legal. And, we'd have to and I got more and more requests like that from personal people that had bought my brownies in a retail source and then just wanted to buy a bunch and have them delivered to them. And actually I did deliver to some patients in the very early days in LA because they were near us. And it just kind of made me, and I also realized there are many, many places, especially back then, that didn't have any dispensaries at all. And so people couldn't have access. They'd have to drive 150, 200 miles to get to a dispensary. And so it just made sense. It was just, and also coupled with me being extremely busy, buying more and more things online myself, just in my daily life. And that it all just came together.
That is an awesome story. But I love how one little step always goes to the next one and took you to where you are. I mean, going back to your prior career, let's not be humble about it. You were an Emmy Award winner. I imagine a lot of that storytelling ability that you had, and I know you worked on The Amazing Race. So folks, there is some storytelling in reality TV. I'm sorry to pull the wool up from over your eyes, but it is true. There are some scripts in there, but I imagine the storytelling, your storytelling background and just having that background in Hollywood around media and everything else actually really paid off when you started the company, because that is just a natural transition into marketing. And personally, this is an opinion of mine. I think a lot of brands in cannabis, whether they're retail or actual flower or extract brands, have a hard time with storytelling. I think they're very stuck in the old mentality of, we've got great product, it's the best, it's the best. And it's very cannabis centric. It's not a brand story that evokes a feeling. And I think with your background, how to do that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but do you feel that your background and the transition that you made, because not only was it a transition, but it was a transition out of passion, that was kind of just lined up perfectly for you to be successful where you are?
Well, I believe that everything happens kind of for a reason, and you build upon things. My producing background certainly taught me very early that you're always going to have a lot of obstacles, no matter what you do. Doesn't matter. There's just obstacles in life, and it's finding a way around them and incorporating those obstacles into growth that makes you a successful producer, showrunner, or cannabis executive, because my point of view is that if you want something and you have a vision, you just have to figure out how to execute it. You're going to hit a million roadblocks, and we have. Oh my God! I mean, I don't even begin to tell some of the stories of the difficulties, but it was more the vision of, I want to do this. How can we do it? What's the best way to change the law if the law has to be changed? I mean, we worked really hard before legalization to help with crafting rules and laws and things, both in the cities that we were in and the state. And that's Zach's work right there. And it's not losing sight of the vision. And what do you have to do to make the vision happen? It's the same thing with anything I believe in life. It's having a vision. And also, the truth is that I do feel strongly about cannabis and the benefits of it, and I want to bring it to the world. I love the idea of normalizing cannabis use for everybody. And I made this transition of, oh my God, it's like bad stuff, to this is amazing. Not only is it great emotionally and spiritually and creatively, but it makes my body feel good. So, that's one of the tenets that I tell all of our employees when I hire them. And even I talk to customers about it. Look, cannabis makes you feel good. It makes you feel good emotionally, spiritually, physically, creatively, sexually. It's like, it's a no-brainer. You gotta, so that's why I'm passionate about it.
No, I agree with you. And I think if more people had experience with it, they would share your feelings, even if they shared both of our feelings beforehand. I mean, I felt the same way. You felt the same way. One of my favorite guests on the show, Ricky Williams, an ex-NFL player, he felt the same way too. He's like, I'm an athlete. I can't do that stuff. And then he discovered it, and it changed his whole perspective on the sport, right? We all know this story. So, obviously there's a common thread among a lot of us here, is that ignorance leads to you thinking that cannabis is bad. And I don't mean ignorance in a bad way. I mean, ignorance is you're ignoring what it actually does, right? It's really interesting how we all discover our own uses for it, and how there's this massive billion-dollar industry built around people who can be professional and use cannabis and can use it to help them in their professional lives. And yet we still have these stigmas of lazy stoners. I think this year, and what's crazy to me, not to get political here, but with the Biden administration dragging their feet on legalization, that the support for cannabis nationally is really being brought to the forefront. And I knew them. I don't want to say I knew. I had the assumption that most people actually do support cannabis legalization, whether they use it or not, because they're like, listen, we know it's not bad. It's not the stories that we heard. And that there's a group of loudmouths that are still airing their grievances. And I know you did an interview on the guy who said, if we legalize pot, it will kill your kids, which guy's a moron. But it's crazy. Do you feel vindicated almost that you look at these articles now, and it sucks that the administration is not legalizing, but you see the overwhelming support for cannabis, and I imagine that's got to feel good with all the work that you've done?
Yeah, I definitely love that it's a trajectory that's happening. It's funny that you talk about this, because just yesterday I read that 90%, which is a very high amount, I couldn't believe it, 90% of Americans favor decriminalizing cannabis and or making it legal in some form, and 60% or 62% favor it being adult use recreational. That's very high. And so I know it's going to happen. I'm not worried about it. And the Biden administration, look, they've only been in office 3 months. So I'm giving them a pass. They've gotten more done in 3 months than any administration in my lifetime. So I'm really happy with them. And I do believe that Kamala has, she's going to make this happen. And so, and Joe Biden is being educated. It's going to happen. Plus the money, there's so much tax money that they can make on a federal level if they legalize marijuana. So that in itself, that's like the carrot, So yeah, I mean, and more research showing the benefits of cannabis is coming out now that it's been legalized. People can actually do real research.
It's interesting that you bring up those statistics too, because I actually saw Jeff Graham of Pistol Data posted something I thought was funny the other day, where he said only 9% of Americans think cannabis should still be illegal for medicinal and recreational use. By comparison, 16% believe in Bigfoot, 25 believe that some people can move objects with their mind, and 26% of people believe that aliens have visited us in modern times. So there are more people that believe in Bigfoot, psychic powers, and aliens than think cannabis should be illegal. I thought that was hilarious, and candidly, I thought the alien number was a little low, but
Oh, I've seen aliens, let me tell you. Definitely.
I think I work with a few of them. But you
You
know,
do.
you have such an interesting background, and just to stereotype, because I can, because I'm from Florida as well, and I saw that you grew up in the Keys. Between the Florida Keys, the University of Miami, and Hollywood, it blows my mind that it took you till 30 to start partaking in cannabis, because the Keys were a major trafficking route into the state. You know, we interviewed Brady Cobb. His dad was running cannabis for Pablo Escobar up the Keys, and you just think that you would have been exposed to it younger. And then listen, I've been to University of Miami football games and everything else. I know what's Miami has basically become kind of the unofficial cannabis capital of Florida. So it's just amazing to me that it's always kind of been circling you, but it finally took you. I would imagine there was kind of a crossroads in your life between the divorce and everything else, that you're like, you're just like, I'm going to try it now. Right. And that
Well,
kind of
yeah,
changed your
definitely. I mean, the Keys was a hotbed of marijuana and cocaine activity when I was growing up. In fact, I found a bale of pot when I was a kid, like a 13-year-old. And but
And that's how she started Ganja Goddess. No, I'm
no,
just kidding.
no, but definitely I was out in my little sailboat sailing around, and this bale of pot was floating around, and I was like, what's that? And I sailed over, and I was like, oh, that's a bale of pot. And I tied it on and brought it back to the beach. And anyway, that's a whole other story. But I was brought up in a household that was slightly religious, and you just didn't do that. There was no drinking, there was no drug use, there was no marijuana use. It was just pretty straight. And so it wasn't, and I also have always been a very motivated individual. So I was like, I'm not going to do any of that because I don't want to interfere with my brain power and so on and so forth. But it was all around me. There were certainly lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of opportunities. I just wasn't interested. And I kind of was a goody two shoes. I was a cheerleader. I was it wasn't in my wheelhouse again. And it wasn't like I thought it was bad. I guess I did think it was bad. You're right, but I also thought smoking was bad. I wouldn't smoke, you couldn't get me to smoke a cigarette. So, I think we evolve as human beings. I really do. I think that evolution in our consciousness is an important aspect of growth and being a human being. And cannabis really helps you expand your consciousness. Yeah. So if that's an interest of yours, then you're going to eventually find it, I think. So that was always an interest of mine, especially as I got older and got less interested in, the business and success and this and that. It was more like, how as a human being can I evolve into a better human being? And there were a lot of different practices that I was involved with that fostered that. Cannabis certainly is something that helps you get there quickly and helps you understand that we're all connected and we're all one. And, it's just one of the nice aspects of it. So yeah, it is remarkable. When I look at it, when I look at the whole thing, I'm actually writing a book about the adventures of Ganja Goddess. And in that book, I talk a lot about, growing up in the cannabis or marijuana culture of the 70s and 80s and in the Florida Keys and in Miami, because it was around me quite a bit. So, yeah. But it is crazy that I'm in the business now, because I really had no interest in it until I started having my consciousness expanded and opening up to it and having the experience that was extremely positive on so many levels. Even now, if I get a little bit of arthritis or whatever, and I have just a little bit of cannabis, I feel great. And again, it's dosage, dosage is
Yeah.
very important aspect of cannabis. I take very, very, very small doses because that works for me. And I know that some people have had bad experiences because they've taken huge doses. In fact, this weekend I was at a party, and it was around a pool, and there was a guy there that was an actor in what is that, NS something LA. They have Miami, LA, New York.
NCIS.
NCIS. That's it. Anyway, he was this beautiful black guy from Oakland, prominent actor. And we were talking, and he'd had one experience with cannabis, and it was bad because he took a big dose. And he said, I'll never try it again. I said, dude, you are completely wrong. If you take a tiny, tiny little bit, it will really open up your acting. He's also, his friend was a writer on Blackish, and also, and I said, look, you got to use it just a little tiny bit when you have to write and you want some kind of new ideas to come out or expand your consciousness. And so, I thought, okay, well, that was my little thing that I did to open up to people who you'd think would be aware of the benefits of cannabis, but really weren't. So, it's an ongoing
I didn't know you could be a comedy writer in Hollywood and not use cannabis. I mean,
I was shocked. This guy was 28 years old, and he didn't ever use it. I was like, that is weird, but whatever. I mean, everybody has a different, focus. I didn't either. I was in the entertainment business, and believe me, there was a lot of drug use going on around me, but I just kind of shrugged it off because I was too busy. Plus, I was raising kids, and it was a lot to deal with. So I just didn't have the interest at the time.
And now we have Puffco sponsoring Comedy Store events, and
right.
That's what we're seeing now.
Yeah.
Did you, as a creative, I've got to ask, when you tried cannabis, did you feel like all of a sudden you were training with a weighted vest, and then you're like, oh my God, like this is what you guys have been doing? This is I just know for me, and I don't mean to glorify the use that way, but for me, when it comes to creativity, it clears the blocks, right? It lets me go further and come up with ideas that for some reason, just when I'm busy or I'm in a stressed state, I can't get to, right? Where I tell my wife, it kind of clears the clouds away. It just makes me zone in on what I need to focus on, and I can get into a very creative state that way. So I'm curious to know, like, did you be, when you tried it, were you like, oh my God, this is helping me, this is making me more creative, it's making me better at the thing I love to do?
Yes, definitely. For me, what it did when I was in a conceptual manner, it opened up things. And if I had reached a block in something I was writing, it gave me ideas. It also gave me very funny things that were funny circumstances. Again, it's dosage, tiny little bit. If you take too much, then you're like, oh yeah, I just want to go to sleep. But so it's finding the right dose that works. And truly, when I first started using it, I would just try it, and I'd be hanging out, and I'd get this crazy great idea and write it down. And because if I don't write things down, I forget them. And I'd write it down. Yeah. And then I realized, when I'm going to, make the time to write, have a writing morning, and I have to produce something, let me try this experiment, and I'm going to try it. And it worked. So using cannabis edibles for me was a great experiment, and it resulted in some really nice work. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more on the dosing thing. I think everybody needs to figure out their dosing and figure out the dosing for the desired outcome, right? Because I could use it for work, and I can use it for creativity in a certain matter where I still have to have an acumen about me, and I need to, think a little bit sharply. So that's a smaller dose versus, hey, it's Friday night, my kid's sleeping, my wife's nodding off because she's pregnant, and there is a hilarious movie or a new Bill Burr stand-up or something, and I want to get back into couch lock mode. It's a different dosage. So it's interesting how you can use it in so many different ways.
Well, I mean, truthfully, my partner and I have stopped drinking pretty much because we've, all the studies show how bad drinking is. And what, on a Friday night to relax when the week's over, it's great to just have some cannabis, make a great dinner or go to a really nice restaurant and then go to a movie or watch a movie. And it's, first of all, the movies are so much better. Entertainment is so much better. Music is so much better. And so is food. So it's like a really great way to just let it go. And that's the thing about cannabis, is it does relax you, and it lets any kind of anxiety you have or things that you're just holding on to that are not working, it just lets it all go. So, you know, it's a great substance, I think.
I can talk to you for hours about how great it is and the experiences and all that stuff, but let's get back to the industry here. So I think you have a very unique, by the way, and I'm just dead serious. Like, I want to talk about cannabis and religion and people using it for experience and stuff, but we only have so much time on the show. You guys have such unique insight into the market because you carry so many products and you reach such a wide audience. I'm curious to know the trends that you're seeing in cannabis products, whether it's microdose products, whether edibles are growing faster. You know, we all see beverages coming out of, not want to say coming out of nowhere, but really exploding, especially cans been getting a lot of attention. Are people buying pre-rolls? Are they buying flour and rolling it themselves, right? Like, what trends are you seeing amongst the products that you're selling and the brands that you're bringing on?
Well, I definitely have seen an increase in edibles because they're so handy, you know, to keep some gummies in your purse or some mints. I always keep drinks around because, you know, it's nice to have 2 milligrams. The can that Ellen spoke so highly of and that Chelsea Handler loves is a product that we carry, and we love it. I love it because it's only 2 milligrams. It's very, there's hardly any sugar in it, and it has herbs like lemongrass and ginger and, you know, pink lemonade and things like that. So that's a great product that, you know, and products like those, there's many products like those that we carry. Just as far as sales data, because we do a lot of data, you know, we go deep diving into our data and customer use, and actual flour is the most, it sells more than anything. Pre-rolls, people like pre-rolls and the convenience of pre-rolls. And then there's vaping. A lot of people like the vape pens. You know, so those are the things that are really pushing the market more than anything.
Very cool. It's really interesting seeing the trends there.
Yeah. I think women like edibles more than anything because they're so easy to, you know, take quickly and, you know, not have to deal with taking time out to smoke or whatever.
Well, that's so good. On that note, that's kind of the reason for the name Ganja Goddess and really the aesthetic of the company, right? Is at the time when you got in it, because I'm glad that you said that. It makes transitions easy for me, but it was very much a bro culture in cannabis. And, you know, if you think about it, a lot of the stoner movies were also bro movies, right? So that's what happened. And there was a whole group of women and there's a whole group of people, young professionals and everything else, that just, they may not be in that classic cannabis culture, but they want to use the product. They do use the product. And you're not the first person I heard like, hey, there was not a friendly place for women to go buy product and be educated on it. So, you know, I imagine women almost kind of lead the charge as well to just the general social movement of cannabis, right? Because I think a lot of the products that are geared towards women now are actually going to be what's best for the general public to start adopting cannabis. I don't know if you feel that way as well.
Well, a couple of things. The idea for the name Ganja Goddess was, it came from several different areas. One, the female part of cannabis is what we smoke and use. It's the flower, and the sinsemilla, which is the all-female flower, is the most potent and the most revered. So there was a female aspect to the plant in general, and women have always been healers. And I'm always interested in the whole goddess culture, both, you know, from green Tara, you know, is a beautiful goddess of healing and compassion, and white Tara, and, you know, the whole Tantra thing. So that kind of wove in to that, as well as me being a woman. And women buy, for families and couples, women are the primary people that buy the products that people use. And as women, mothers, professionals, mothers who are professionals, become more interested in it. They want an experience that's easy and safe and friendly, both aesthetically and the beauty of it and the ease of it and the familiarity of it. So that's kind of what all of those things were woven in to create the branding and the company and the name and everything. I personally, one of the things that I really wanted to do was to bring more women on board with buying so that they were exposed to it. So that was kind of one of our tenets in the business, as well as to take it away from this 21-year-old male or 22-year-old male user, which is definitely a big part of the market. And that's low-hanging fruit. But people that are in their 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s that either haven't ever used it or maybe used it when they were teenagers and then it's so illegal, it became hard to use, can rediscover it and find the beautiful beneficial aspects of it for their life right now, whether it's with some kind of, medical thing or aging thing, or just, for using it for fun, because who doesn't like to have fun? And so, that's kind of where we came from.
It's really interesting to me when we look at that, and I love the branding and everything else. I've been staring at the logo over your head, which
I actually did that over a weekend. Everybody made fun of me. Cool. I had a stencil made from our logo, and I kept wanting to have somebody else do it because I'm not that crafty or anything like that. And it didn't happen. So one day I just said, I'm doing this. So I taped it up there and I got my little gold paint out and I spent the whole weekend doing it. Believe me, it was hilarious.
I love those stories. Actually, when you put your head just right, the logo almost looks like a crown on your head. So I'm going to have to.
The crown. And if you notice right here, it's the shape of a cannabis flower. That's the cannabis bud and the crown of the goddess. And also, I really love the moon part of it, which is the crescent moon, which has a lot of symbolism in, with Rumi and different, things that I'm interested in. And so, a lot of levels.
I'd love seeing the companies that are doing this kind of stuff, because to me, you guys are looking big picture and you're looking long term, right? Like there's a lot of companies that are. I remember probably a year ago, my dad's like, "Oh, I met someone who works in the cannabis industry. He works. What's a company with green in it?" I'm like, "I don't know, Dad. 75% of the industry." Like, so. You have all these companies with green and all these different cannabis, and everybody has the leaf as their logo. To see people who are looking long-term and looking at just really creating a brand that happens to be in the cannabis industry is very unique to me. I have a lot of friends that we'll call them in the culture, and they talk about all their favorite cannabis brands, and they're all great brands. And when I talk about the brands that I see and how I think they're going to be the number one brand in the market, they laugh at me, because I remember, a few years ago, I looked at Lowell and I go, these guys are going to be huge. And everyone's like, their stuff suck. Their weed's garbage. It's boof. It's that and that. I go, yeah, but it is a pre-roll pack. They've got a great bullshit story behind it, because there is no William Bull Lowell. And with Lowell, I love your brand, but you have a bullshit story. Sorry. You know it. I know it. And I saw these packs and I saw their branding and everything else. I go, when you go into a dispensary and you don't know what you're looking for, this draws you to it. And you're starting to see brands like that. And it's funny, a lot of the traditional cannabis players, and God bless them, we still need quality product and craft product. And that is a huge market. We see it in liquor, we see it in booze. But at the end of the day, Budweiser is the best selling beer. Barefoot is one of the best selling wines, right? Those are the top selling, and they are far from being the best. If that was the case, that the best brand was going to win out, we'd all be drinking Louis Trey or something like that. And we're not, right? So it's very interesting to see the Candescence of the world come out, and the Dosis and Lowell and the people that are targeting the general public, creating a brand. And I think you guys have done that from a delivery standpoint, and it's great. Are you starting to see more true branding come into this industry where it's not just, hey, we've got great weed, we're the best, this, that, and the other, but more people that are like the Lowells of the world that have this branding story and evoke a feeling when you look at their products?
Oh, definitely. I think the cannabis business is like any business. The things that make you successful are hard work, vision, great branding, and I believe great product. For instance, we had to shut down our brownie and our edibles business as we went into the legalization, because we had to do some restructuring for our kitchen to have a compliant kitchen and things like that. And we're just getting started with that again. And for me, I'm very interested in super high quality products. And one of the things we're doing, we're working with a grower right now to grow specific strains for us that we will market for as Ganja Goddess cannabis. And because we're distributing them. And one of the things that I'm interested in is I love old school strains. I love, God's Gift and Maui Wowie and
I had some of that today, actually.
Yeah, and Trainwreck and Sour Diesel and all of those like real primary strains that were really popular one time, but are very, very hard to find now. And so my idea is, hey, let's revive some of these great old strains that people love and ask for, and use it with a branding so that we have a really good quality product and it's branded really cool. So I think, yes, absolutely. To answer your question, branding is extremely important, no matter what industry you're in. And the cannabis industry, when you boil it down, is an industry, a business. So it has to run that way.
I thought it was funny you brought up Maui Wowie, because I had some of these today, Maui Wowie, the baby Jeters. But I know I'm wearing the shirt and I have the product. I actually I know the owners of Dreamfields. We went to middle school, high school, and college together. So, I'm very close with the guys out there, but I think that's awesome that you guys are doing that in-house brand, because I see this whole thing in my head about, just from the person I feel like you are on this little interview. Obviously, we didn't know each other before this, that you're almost going to use it as like a history lesson too, but not in a boring way, because you're going with these original strains. I just really see some cool branding around it.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, again, it harks back to my desire to do fun things that interest me. I mean, customer service interested me. Why are people not putting their number on the website? Why, so I really follow kind of my gut that way. And I think that has been a part of my success and our success. But again, I love products that I love. I mean, when I go into Blue Bottle Coffee, which is a coffee that started in San Francisco and is all over in California now. I don't know if they're across the United States, but it's a great product with really good branding, and that attracts me, and I'm a loyal customer of theirs. And so that's what I hope to do with our customer, our company as well, is and I think we have super big customer retention. So
there are two companies, they're menswear companies, that have me as a customer for life because of their customer service. So I believe in everything that you're saying. Bonobos and Indochino, they're two menswear companies. Although Bonobos was purchased by Walmart and I haven't had to deal with them in a while. But
oh my God, because Zach loves Bonobos. And they have a retail store in LA as well that's super cool. And his wife always would buy him Bonobos shirts. I thought that's funny. I can't believe Walmart bought them. Wow.
Walmart bought them, but they stayed independent. They're still working, but their customer service, especially when they started, it's absolutely incredible. It's funny you say that their retail store, because that was an interesting model that blew my mind. And we're completely off topic here, but it's my show, so it's okay. They do a thing called a guide shop, where they actually don't sell anything out of the stores. They just have one of everything in every size. You go and try it on, and they ship it to your house. So it's a really interesting model.
That's great. I mean, that's the thing, is when you talk about branding of cannabis or customer service in cannabis, it's really taking a product that we haven't been familiar with as a customer in a mainstream way and making it mainstream, making it comfortable for people. And that really, when you boil it down to what Ganja Goddess is about, is we want to make people comfortable and knowledgeable about using cannabis, whether you're a 28-year-old influencer or a 34-year-old mom who's stressed out beyond belief because she's balancing work and kids, or it's somebody in their 70s and they're dealing with arthritis and, whatever. Or you're an executive and you want, to be able to use it to relax or to get ideas.
Yeah.
There are so many uses that work, and we want to make people aware of it because there is more and more, I have to say, every year, the people that I run into that are using cannabis, I would never have expected it 5 years ago. Now they're like, oh my God, this like totally straight 65-year-old guy is using cannabis all the time, and you would never know it. So yeah.
No, it's crazy. And if I can plug the blog site on the Ganja Goddess site, you guys do a great job with your blog posts. They're very educational. So I think you are definitely achieving your goal of helping normalize it. There's one thing I want to go on with that, but what you had just mentioned, it's funny. I want to say when I started in the cannabis industry, which wasn't too long ago, like 2.5 years ago, and this was before I was in a year before I started doing this show, I was afraid to tell people what I did because of the stigma, where it was, I'm in the cannabis space. I don't know how you feel about it. Fast forward to today, I have a friend of mine that we were out to lunch last week, and he was telling me he was at his kid's birthday party. I go, I know we used to not tell people because of the stigma. I go, do you find now that you just don't tell people what you do because they won't leave you alone and they talk your ear off? And this is what we talk about literally every day. I'm like, I do this twice a week for an hour on camera. Do you find that too, that it's shifted from, I don't want to tell you what I do because of stigma, to I don't want to tell you what I do because I don't have an hour?
Definitely. I mean, if you go on a plane and you sit next to somebody and they ask you what you do and you tell them you're in cannabis, it's like, it doesn't stop talking. The talking doesn't stop. And there's good things about that, but sometimes you just don't want to deal. And everybody wants information. Everybody wants tips on how to get into it, what to invest in. I totally agree, because when I first got into it, I didn't tell people what I did that didn't know me well, because it was just too hard. And there was a lot of stigma attached to it. And
you were in it way back when.
Yeah. And so
2006.
It's completely different. It's totally different now. So yeah, I totally agree.
That's awesome.
I'm glad. I'm glad.
I am glad too. It is a lot better than the stigma and everything else. I make that joke mainly because I know like Rogan does that and I rip him off a lot. But on this, like, I literally do a show twice a week talking about the cannabis industry. A lot of times at the kids' party, I'm like, here's my YouTube. You guys can browse while I go play with the kids. But it's interesting. I saw the other thing, and I'm curious to know this on your site too. You guys also do a lot of accessories now. And I even saw that you have like, I don't want to call them starter kits, but kits too. Are you trying to really just expand the overall cannabis experience? It's now just a one-stop shop, because I know somebody very big in the accessories line where his thesis is head shops may not be a thing anymore. Accessories are going to start being sold where the cannabis is. It's a one-stop shop, and that's where we're going to get our accessories in the future. And I already see you doing that at Ganja Goddess, and you guys are a delivery shop. So it's not even a two-stop system where someone would have to get their cannabis here and their accessories there. They would just order whatever they needed from you and then go to the head shop, but you're taking that step out altogether. So are you guys seeing that too, that accessories are going to be another big ancillary business for cannabis companies?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's much easier if you're buying some bud to buy a grinder if you don't have one, or a tray, or, papers or whatever. It definitely is a part of our business. It's not a big part. There's not the profit in it. But and we do it because we want people to have a convenient experience, and it helps them. So we're trying to give products that people want, for whether it's rolling, joints, or, just the different things, pipes, things like that. So yeah, definitely it's a part of the business. It's a small part. And for us, it's really more convenience for our customers. And our customers were asking for it. They were like, hey, I'm buying some pot. Do you have any pipes? And we were like, no, we don't. Maybe we should do that, So that's why it came about.
Very cool. I like it just for the impulse buy. Like, for me, there are a lot of accessories that I probably circle around for a little bit. And then if I was making an order and saw it, just an add to cart, it's like, oh, it's on its way. Nothing I can do about it. I bought it already. So I really like that idea. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is And I saw a couple headlines on this. For some reason, there was no article with any meat to it, that you also are starting a lifestyle brand. I love that that the PR firms that we work with, they trust me to do my research, but I remember seeing it as a headline and never read an article on it. So tell us about that as well too.
It's an idea right now that I've been
Ah,
developing. And so, I trademark Ganja Goddess Life. And just it's really it's a lifestyle thing that we are kind of messing with, and we're developing it. It's in development. And that's why we haven't really publicized much of it.
now I feel better about it then. I'm like, I know I saw this, but I didn't really see like a whole bunch of information on it. So I should probably ask. I love it. I love the way that your brain works, and how every new experience leads you to another one and leads you to another one. And literally I tried cannabis. I kind of enjoyed it. Someone needed something, so I made it. And then from there, I made something even better. And then everyone loved it. And that became a business. And that became the biggest delivery company in California, which is now going into Arizona and all these other places. It's a retail store in Washington. And like, you're just creating this empire based off filling needs. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's how life is, though. I'm sure you've experienced it. You meet somebody, you try something. Even back when I was producing, I would do one show, I'd meet an executive or a producer, and then we would do another show, and where you write an idea down and it leads to another idea that you develop. And that's how life works in general, I think. And yeah, I mean, it grows, things grow and evolve. It's a part of evolution.
Very cool. Well, I have taken an hour of your time, which I very much appreciate. So before we let you go, let's get all the plugs out there where people can follow you, where they can buy stuff, anything else you got going on.
Well, ganjagoddess.com is our website, and that's for California. And then, of course, we have CBDGoddess.com, which is all over the United States. You can buy CBD products on that site. And then we have our retail store in Seattle, Ganja Goddess Seattle. And you can find, and then we have, if you're interested in learning more about cannabis, I would definitely recommend that you go to the ganjagoddess.com website. We have a lot of stuff on our blog, like you mentioned. Anytime I read something about anything, I try to post it there, so it's a good information source. And yeah, that's our deal.
Awesome. Well, I definitely would love to have you and Zach back together and possibly call it the roadblock episode, so we can hear all the fun stories of dealing with regulations and all the different things on the way up. That's what I always love to hear. Everybody always loves to hear about the successes and all the good stuff. I love hearing about the failures. I don't know why. It's always fun to hear the failures and hear people learn from them.
Well, great. We'd love to come back. We like your show, so thank you.
Well, thank you, Tara. I very much appreciate that. I will let you go, folks. Thank you, everybody at home, for tuning in again. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. I know that I did. If you missed any part of this episode, it'll be live on our YouTube page next week at youtube.com/elevateyourgrind. For all the great stuff we have coming up on C-Lab, including our next virtual national panel, you can find that at joinclab.com. I think those are all the announcements. We're done for the week. We will be back here next week with Kendra Stocking and Drayton Howell. So tune into those here at facebook.com/Cannabis Group, and we will see you next week.